The industrial district of Detroit never slept. Even at 3 in the morning, the rumble of cargo trucks and the distant clanking of metal echoed through the streets. Marcus Sullivan had been riding these routes for 15 years, delivering packages on his custom Harley-Davidson. At 42, he knew every pothole, every shortcut, every place where trouble might be waiting. That November night was colder than usual. Marcus adjusted his leather jacket as he turned onto Warehouse Row, a stretch of abandoned buildings that the city had forgotten. Most businesses had moved out years ago, leaving behind hollow structures that collected dust and memories. He was thinking about his daughter's birthday next week when he saw the child. A small figure stood in the middle of the road, waving frantically. Marcus hit the brakes, his motorcycle skidding slightly on the damp asphalt. The headlight illuminated a boy, no older than 8, with dark curly hair and wide, terrified eyes. He wore a thin jacket that offered little protection against the freezing wind. Marcus killed the engine and approached carefully. Detroit streets taught you to be cautious, even with children. "Hey kid, you okay? What are you doing out here?" The boy opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His lips moved desperately, forming words that never materialized. He pointed urgently toward the largest warehouse at the end of the street, then grabbed Marcus's leather sleeve with surprising strength. Marcus felt his chest tighten. The kid was mute. And he was trying to tell him something important. The boy pulled him forward, his small hand trembling. Marcus looked toward the warehouse the child indicated. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then he noticed it, a thin stream of smoke rising from one of the broken windows on the second floor. Oh God! Fire! Marcus immediately pulled out his phone and dialed 911. As he reported the location, the boy tugged at him again, more insistently. His eyes weren't just scared anymore. They were urgent, desperate, like he was trying to communicate something far more important than just a fire. The dispatcher confirmed fire trucks were on their way. Marcus knelt down to the boy's level. "Listen, buddy. Help is coming. But we need to get you somewhere safe. Where are your parents?" The boy shook his head violently. He pointed at the warehouse again, then made a strange gesture. He held up both hands, fingers spread wide, then repeated the motion multiple times. 10, 20, 30. He kept going. His fingers moved frantically, counting something Marcus couldn't understand. Before Marcus could ask more questions, the distant wail of sirens filled the air. Fire trucks rounded the corner, their red lights painting the abandoned buildings in urgent crimson. Behind them came police cars and an ambulance. Captain Jennifer Hayes was the first to jump out of the lead fire truck. She was a veteran, tough as nails, with 20 years of fighting fires in one of America's most challenging cities. She took one look at the smoking warehouse and started barking orders. 2 teams inside. Search and rescue protocol. This building's been vacant for months, but we sweep every floor. Marcus approached her with the boy still clinging to his jacket. "Captain, this kid flagged me down. He's mute, but he's trying to tell us something. I think there might be people inside." Hayes looked at the child, then back at the warehouse. Her expression shifted from professional focus to something deeper. Instinct. She'd learned to trust it. "Rodriguez, Santos, you heard the man. Assume occupied. Full sweep. Move." As firefighters rushed into the building with their equipment, the boy suddenly broke free from Marcus and ran toward a police officer, pulling out a small notepad from his pocket. His hands moved rapidly, scribbling something. The officer's face went pale as he read it. "Captain Hayes. You need to see this." Marcus and the captain hurried over. The notepad contained shaky but clear handwriting. 200 people basement trapdoor locked from outside. The words hit like a physical blow. Hayes grabbed her radio. "All units, we have a potential mass casualty situation. 200 possible victims in the basement. I repeat, 200. We need every available unit now. Marcus felt his blood run cold. 200 people. In a locked basement. In a building that was on fire. The boy looked up at them, tears streaming down his face, his small chest heaving with silent sobs. He had tried to tell them. He had warned them. And now, everyone would know that something far more sinister than an accidental fire was happening in that forgotten warehouse. As more emergency vehicles arrived and the scene transformed into organized chaos, one question burned in everyone's mind: who were these people, and why were they locked inside? Captain Hayes assembled her team while Detroit PD set up a perimeter. The smoke was thickening, black plumes now billowing from multiple windows. Time was running out. Marcus watched as firefighters used hydraulic tools to force open the main entrance. The boy stayed close to him, his small hand gripping Marcus's jacket like a lifeline. A female police officer, Detective Sarah Chen, approached them with a gentle expression. "Sweetie, can you write down your name for me?" The boy hesitated, then wrote carefully, Tommy Walsh, age 8. "Tommy, you're incredibly brave. Can you tell us how you knew about the people in the basement?" Tommy's hand shook as he wrote, "My MOM is down there." The words sent a chill through everyone nearby. Marcus felt his throat constrict. This wasn't just a rescue mission for Tommy. This was personal. "How did you get out, buddy?" Marcus asked softly. Tommy wrote quickly, "MOM pushed me through small window. Told me run. Get help. Bad men have guns." Guns. The situation just escalated from rescue to hostage crisis. Detective Chen immediately radioed for SWAT backup. Captain Hayes pulled her teams back temporarily, reassessing the approach. You couldn't just rush into a building with armed suspects and 200 potential hostages. Marcus knelt beside Tommy, whose tears wouldn't stop flowing. The boy kept writing, his penmanship becoming messier with panic. "Please hurry. They said sunrise. Something bad at sunrise." "What happens at sunrise?" Detective Chen pressed gently. Tommy shook his head frantically and wrote, "Don't know. Heard them talking. Something about angels. 200 angels. Angels." The word seemed out of place in this nightmare scenario. Within minutes, SWAT arrived. Lieutenant Frank Morrison, a muscular man with cold, calculating eyes, took command of the tactical situation. He reviewed building blueprints that the city had rushed over. The basement had only 2 access points, the main stairwell inside and an external loading dock entrance that had been sealed with concrete years ago. "We go in quiet," Morrison instructed his team. "Thermal imaging shows massive heat signatures in the basement. Confirms the victim count. But I'm also picking up at least 6 individuals on the ground floor, armed, positioned defensively." Captain Hayes interjected, "The fire's spreading. We've got maybe 30 minutes before that basement becomes an oven." "Then we move in 20, Morrison replied coldly. Tommy suddenly grabbed Marcus's phone and typed frantically into the notes app, "My MOM Amanda Walsh. Blonde hair. Blue jacket. Please find her. She saved me." Marcus looked into those desperate eyes and made a promise he hoped he could keep. "We'll find her, Tommy. I swear." As SWAT prepared to breach, Detective Chen made a discovery that changed everything. She'd run Tommy's mother's name through the system. Amanda Walsh was a federal immigration caseworker. And 3 weeks ago, she'd filed a report about suspicious activity at a religious organization called the Angel Ascension Ministry. 200 angels. It suddenly made horrifying sense. Detective Chen's hands trembled as she pulled up Amanda Walsh's report on her tablet. The Angel Ascension Ministry wasn't a church. It was a front for human trafficking, specifically targeting undocumented immigrants with promises of legal asylum and divine protection. Amanda had been investigating them for months, gathering evidence. And somehow, they'd discovered her identity. "They didn't just lock these people in the basement," Chen said, her voice tight with rage. "They're erasing evidence. The fire, the locked doors. This is mass murder disguised as an accident." Lieutenant Morrison's jaw clenched. His tactical approach shifted immediately. This wasn't just a hostage rescue anymore. This was stopping a massacre. Tommy tugged at Marcus's sleeve again, pointing at the tablet. He wrote quickly. "MOM said she had proof. Flash drive. In her jacket pocket. Names, money, everything. That flash drive was worth killing 200 people to destroy." Morrison spoke into his radio with deadly calm. "All units, we breach in 5 minutes. Rules of engagement: anyone armed is a threat. Neutralize immediately. Priority is civilian extraction." Captain Hayes coordinated with her firefighters. They would enter simultaneously with SWAT, focusing on controlling the fire and creating escape routes. The basement had to be vented, or everyone down there would suffocate before bullets or flames ever reached them. Marcus felt helpless standing on the sidelines. He was just a delivery guy who'd been in the wrong place at the right time. But looking at Tommy's terrified face, he knew he couldn't just walk away. Not now. If you're watching this story unfold and your heart is pounding like mine, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Tommy's courage deserves to be heard, and what happens next will change everything. The SWAT team moved like shadows. Thermal imaging guided them through the smoke-filled ground floor. The armed men inside never saw them coming. 4 suspects were neutralized within 90 seconds. 2 more barricaded themselves near the basement stairwell, firing wildly. Return fire was precise. Professional. Within 3 minutes, the threat was eliminated. Basement access secured, Morrison radioed. "Firefighters, you're clear to proceed." Captain Hayes and her team stormed down the stairs with respirators and thermal cameras. What they found made seasoned veterans stop in their tracks. The basement was massive, stretching the entire length of the warehouse. And it was packed with people. Families huddled together. Children crying. Men and women pressed against walls, coughing violently from smoke inhalation. Some were unconscious. Most were immigrants who'd been promised safety and instead found themselves imprisoned. But the fire had weakened the floor above. Supports were cracking. They had minutes, maybe less. "We need ambulances," Hayes shouted into her radio. "Dozens of them. And we need them now." Firefighters began leading people up the stairs in organized waves. The strongest victims helped carry the weakest. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. And then Marcus heard it. A firefighter's voice crackling over the radio. "I've got Amanda Walsh. She's alive." "Repeat, Tommy's mother is alive." Tommy's entire body went rigid when he heard those words through the police radio. His mother was alive. His silent scream of joy was visible in every trembling muscle, every tear that flooded his eyes. Marcus grabbed the boy's shoulders, steadying him. "She's coming, buddy. Your mom's coming." Emergency medical teams swarmed the scene. Survivors emerged from the basement in waves, coughing, disoriented but alive. Paramedics wrapped them in thermal blankets and administered oxygen. The November cold had become a blessing, cooling down bodies overheated by smoke and fear. Amanda Walsh appeared through the smoke like a ghost. Her face was covered in soot, her blue jacket torn, but she was walking. The moment she saw Tommy, she collapsed to her knees and he ran into her arms. The reunion was silent but deafening in its emotion. Mother and son held each other as if the world had stopped spinning. Marcus felt tears burning his own eyes. This was why he'd stopped. This moment right here. Detective Chen approached Amanda carefully, giving her space but needing answers. Amanda reached into her jacket pocket with shaking hands and pulled out a small flash drive. "Everything you need is here," Amanda whispered hoarsely. "Names, bank accounts, properties across 12 states. The Angel Ascension Ministry has been operating for 8 years. They've trafficked over 3,000 people. These 200 were scheduled for transport overseas tonight. When I got too close, they decided to eliminate all evidence. Including you, Chen finished grimly. Amanda nodded. They grabbed me from my apartment 2 days ago. Threw me in here with everyone else. I thought we were going to die. But Tommy, she pulled her son closer, Tommy was supposed to be with my sister. He followed them. Hid in their van. When they weren't looking, I pushed him through that window and prayed someone would find him. Tommy wrote on his notepad and showed his mother, found biker. He listened. Marcus extended his hand to Amanda. Marcus Sullivan. Just happened to be making a delivery. Amanda shook his hand firmly, her grip stronger than expected. You saved 200 lives tonight, Mr. Sullivan. That's not just happening to be somewhere. That's fate. Behind them, the warehouse groaned. A section of the roof collapsed inward, sending sparks into the night sky. Captain Hayes ordered everyone back as her team worked to contain the blaze. It would burn for hours, but everyone who could be saved had been saved. Lieutenant Morrison approached with grim satisfaction. We've identified all 6 suspects. 4 are deceased. 2 survived and are in custody. Federal agents are already executing warrants on 17 locations connected to the ministry. By sunrise, this entire operation will be dismantled. Sunrise. The word Tommy had written. Something bad was supposed to happen at sunrise. Instead, sunrise would bring justice. As ambulances transported victims to hospitals across Detroit, Tommy wrote one more message and showed it to Marcus. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for believing me. The next 72 hours became a whirlwind of media attention, federal investigations, and emotional reunions. The story of the mute child who saved 200 people spread across the nation like wildfire. News outlets camped outside Detroit General Hospital, where most survivors were being treated for smoke inhalation and trauma. Marcus visited Tommy and Amanda on the second day. He brought flowers and a stuffed motorcycle toy for Tommy, who immediately clutched it to his chest with a brilliant smile. Amanda looked healthier, the color returning to her face, though the weight of what she'd endured still shadowed her eyes. The FBI wants me in witness protection, Amanda told Marcus as they sat in her hospital room. At least until the trials are over. There are powerful people connected to this ministry. Politicians, business owners, even some law enforcement. Marcus nodded grimly. Detective Chen had briefed him on the scope of the operation. The flash drive Amanda saved contained evidence that would bring down a network spanning from Detroit to Los Angeles, from Chicago to Miami. Millions of dollars in illegal transactions. Thousands of victims over nearly a decade. But you got them, Marcus said firmly. Because of you and Tommy, this ends. Tommy wrote on his ever-present notepad, MOM is hero. Amanda hugged her son tightly. We're both heroes. And so is Marcus. Captain Hayes stopped by that afternoon with news. The fire investigation had confirmed arson. Accelerants were found throughout the building, strategically placed to ensure maximum destruction. The suspects in custody were talking, cutting deals to reduce their sentences. Names were being named. Arrests were happening nationwide. 200 people get to go home to their families, Hayes said, her usually stern expression softening. Because an 8-year-old boy was braver than most adults I know. Detective Chen arrived with the final piece of the puzzle. The immigration cases Amanda had been working on were being reviewed. Many of the survivors who'd been trafficked would now receive legitimate asylum protection. Their nightmare had ended, and a pathway to safety had opened. Tommy's notepad message brought tears to everyone's eyes. Bad guys wanted to make us disappear. But we didn't. We're still here. Marcus stayed until visiting hours ended. As he prepared to leave, Amanda stopped him. I don't know how to thank you properly. You didn't have to stop. Most people wouldn't have. Marcus thought about that moment on the empty street, when he'd first seen Tommy waving desperately in his headlight. A split-second decision that changed everything. I have a daughter, Marcus said quietly. She's 10. If she ever needed help, I'd pray someone would stop for her too. Tommy reminded me why we stop. Why we listen. Why we care. Tommy handed Marcus a drawing he'd made. It showed a motorcycle, a small boy, and a burning building with people walking out safely. At the top, in careful letters, Tommy had written, "Angels are real. They ride motorcycles." Marcus folded the drawing carefully and placed it in his jacket pocket, right over his heart. 18 months later, Marcus pulled his Harley-Davidson into the parking lot of the Detroit Community Center. The spring sun warmed his face as he removed his helmet, and he couldn't help but smile at the banner hanging above the entrance, Tommy Walsh Youth Advocacy Foundation, Grand Opening. The community center had been funded by donations that poured in after the warehouse rescue story went viral. People across the country had been moved by Tommy's courage, and they'd wanted to help. Amanda had channeled that support into something permanent, something that would give voice to children who couldn't speak for themselves. Marcus walked through the doors and was immediately greeted by a familiar face. Tommy had grown taller, his curly hair a bit longer, but his smile was just as bright. He wore a t-shirt that read "Silence is loud" and carried a tablet computer, his new preferred method of communication. Tommy typed quickly and the tablet's voice spoke for him. "Marcus, you came. Mom said you wouldn't miss it. Wouldn't miss this for the world, kid." The center was beautiful. Bright murals covered the walls, painted by survivors and their families. One entire section was dedicated to teaching sign language. Another offered legal services for immigrants. A third provided trauma counseling and support groups. Amanda appeared, looking radiant in a professional blazer. She'd returned to her work with immigration services, but now with national recognition and support. The evidence from her flash drive had led to 47 convictions. The Angel Ascension Ministry was dismantled completely. 3,000 victims had been identified and offered assistance. Captain Hayes and Detective Chin were already there, along with several firefighters and police officers who'd participated in the rescue. Lieutenant Morrison stood awkwardly in a corner, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but present nonetheless. Amanda took the small stage as the crowd quieted. 18 months ago, my son and I should have died in that warehouse along with 200 innocent people. But we didn't. Because one man on a motorcycle decided to stop. Because my 8-year-old son refused to give up. Because brave first responders risked everything. Today, we open this center to honor that night and to ensure no child's voice goes unheard, whether they can speak or not. Tommy joined his mother on stage. He typed into his tablet, and the computerized voice filled the room. "Bad people tried to silence us forever. But we were louder. Thank you to everyone who listened. Thank you to Marcus, who stopped when it mattered most. This center will help other kids be heard. Always." The applause was thunderous. As the celebration continued, Marcus stood with Tommy looking at a wall of photos. 200 faces. 200 survivors. 200 lives continuing because of one cold November night. Tommy typed one final message, "You're my hero, Marcus." Marcus knelt down and signed slowly, words he'd learned just for this moment. "No, Tommy. You're mine." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own stories of courage, or suggest topics for future videos. Thank you for being here until the end. Your support means everything, and together, we can keep sharing stories that matter. Remember, sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. Never stop listening.